Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Wednesday, January the 8th, a Wednesday night that gets a little bit quieter for me as the game in LA, which was set to start at 7:30 Pacific, has been postponed due to the wildfires in the area. The Los Angeles dealing with it right now, so it doesn't make any sense to have that game. If you're in the area, if you're affected by these, stay indoors, keep windows shut, that kind of thing. Um, One thing that I found with wildfire season here during the summer, air conditioners can help. It can help filter the air a little bit. So just throwing that out there. Just for the indoors, because that smoke can get in. There have been mornings where I've woke up and been like, okay, I can smell smoke and we're not outside. So yeah, air conditioners can help filter out the air a little bit. Of course, you'd have air filters do that too, obviously. But, stay safe and hopefully this gets dealt with soon and those Santa Ana winds go away. The winds make it so much worse, and so hopefully those, if they haven't simmered down by now, hopefully they simmer down pretty quickly here. The Seattle Kraken putting Daniel Sprong on waivers. So Sprong kind of got a hero's welcome when he went back to Seattle, but it has not worked out. He's played, I think, 10 games since the return, and the production's not there. And so Sprong on waivers. I don't think he's going to get claimed, but there's been some surprises with who does or doesn't get claimed so far this season. So let me know your thoughts on who you might see picking up Sprong. Let me know your thoughts. And that, Matt Rempe talking about the suspension now that it's done. I believe last night's game against Dallas was the end of that suspension. And Rempe not avoiding what happened here or that it was a suspension and saying he has to play smarter, which means a cleaner game. He's still going to play physical, but he has to play a cleaner game than he has been because he knows if this happens again, the suspension could be in that 20 game range, right? As I said at the time of the incident, this was easy for the NHL's Department of Player Safety. It's a fourth liner who bounces back and forth between the AHL and the NHL. And so it's easy to suspend him. It's easy to say that, well, this guy's gone for 5 games. Rempe needs to be very careful, but still play that physical game because that's what makes him an effective fourth liner for the Rangers. And I think that if he does, clean his game up a little bit, I think there's a decent fourth liner there for New York. The outdoor games for next season have been revealed. Both of them are in Florida. The NHL wanting to celebrate the growth of hockey in Florida. January 2nd will be the Winter Classic. No, that's not January 1st, but at least it's going to have the right calendar date when the game's on rather than this year's, which was the 2025 Winter Classic, played New Year's Eve of 2024. The Florida Panthers will host the New York Rangers. I had assumed when they said Florida was going to get a couple outdoor games that one of them would be between the two Florida-based teams, which I thought would be great, but Florida Rangers should be entertaining. And then Roberto Luongo jumps on the formerly known as Twitter to say, hey, what about an alumni game? And you could have Henrik Lundqvist at one end and me at the other. And then the dig, I know he knows he was making, he says he'd always wanted to play in an outdoor game. So we're all back in 2013 with that statement. 2013 was the game in Vancouver, wasn't it? It was a tumultuous time for the Vancouver Canucks when that outdoor game took place. John Tortorella decides to put in Eddie Lack rather than Roberto Luongo. And there was a lot of speculation about whether that was the moment that Luongo decided, well, I don't want to stay in Vancouver. It had been just an absolutely bonkers, weird time, anyways, where, yeah, I mean, Luongo had been the backup, and then he was going to be the starter again because they traded Schneider instead of Luongo. But always wanted to play an outdoor game. That hits, and I agree with Luongo. I think an alumni game could be great in this case, and maybe for the stadium game too. The Stadium Series game will be February 1st. Tampa hosts it against the Boston Bruins. Traditionally, Boston-Tampa has been a pretty strong rivalry. I think it's an underrated rivalry, to be honest. And so I think this could be a lot of fun. I really thought it was going to be Florida and Tampa in at least one of them. But either way, this is fine. And immediately I started thinking, so what could you do with Boston with a stadium jersey? You could have a lot of fun with a Boston stadium jersey. I'm wearing a Tampa stadium jersey from the last time they played against Nashville in an outdoor game. So, yeah, could be kind of fun. And they can't do bolts again because I have a black bolts, a blue bolts, and a white bolts. So unless they do like a silver one, it's going to be a silver bolts, isn't it? Anyway, that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. David Jiricek has been recalled by the Minnesota Wild with Brock Faber out. In order to make room, because cap space being what cap space is and everything, they've placed Lauko on LTIR, and Shore's been sent down to the AHL. Because of the retroactive nature that they use the LTIR with Lauko for, Lauko is eligible to come off of LTIR tomorrow. So this is just purely a transaction being made to get Jiricek brought up and to make sure everything's fine with the salary cap situation. Jiricek, we'll see how many games he gets into, how much time he plays, and how long Faber's out. I have not seen a report on how long Faber's going to be out, but it does not sound like a short-term injury. So maybe, but we'll see. Pettersson, speaking of injury news, he's considered a game-time decision for the Canucks tonight against the Washington Capitals. Having Pettersson out of the lineup has not helped the Canucks' fortunes any. And also encouraging news for the Canucks and for their fans is Hronek has been sent down to Abbotsford on a conditioning stint. So he'll probably get into a few games with Abbotsford and then go right back up to the Vancouver Canucks, who desperately need that depth on the blue line. And getting Hronek back could be huge for Vancouver. Demko was also talked to, and Demko feels that he can get back to being the Thatcher Demko we saw in previous seasons. And while he was good in a couple of those games after the comeback this season, he has not been the Thatcher Demko that we've seen prior to this injury with his knee. So hopefully Demko can come back relatively soon here. Hronek coming back will be huge, and Pettersson getting back into the lineup is a net positive for the Canucks as well. Boston Bruins had a tough night last night against the Edmonton Oilers. After the game, Lindholm saying that it was embarrassing, that they were embarrassed. Coach Joe Sacco talking about how, this losing streak reaching 5 games is unacceptable. All that fun stuff. Boston's already fired the coach, so you can't fire the coach again. So you have your options here. You can make a trade, or somebody higher up can decide somebody else in the higher ups is the issue. So we'll see what the Boston Bruins do, but they're precariously close to falling below that playoff line, while they're technically third in that division. Tampa's got games in hand. I think Tampa's only 1 point back of Boston now. And it's a bit of a dogfight in that chase for wild cards right now. And so Boston, I think, needs to turn the losing around, and tomorrow they're in Tampa. So, yeah, that could be entertaining. Like I said, it's always a really entertaining game when Boston and Tampa play against each other, basically because they hate each other. That's a big part of it. Kent Hughes, general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, of course, when talked to about the recent run the Montreal Canadiens have been on and the fact they've been above the playoff line here and there, saying that he's more focused on the player development than on whether or not they make the playoffs, which to me makes perfect sense. The Montreal Canadiens were not expected to be a playoff team this season. I don't think there's any reason to put that pressure on them. And he also says that he's not going to flood the team with young players, and he's not going to go out at the deadline and necessarily sell. This is a team that's looking at where they're at, looking at the future, and making decisions about what's best for the development of the young players, rather than saying, okay, we can try to, jump into the playoffs now and see what we can do. I think Kent Hughes has done a very good job in Montreal thus far, and so we'll see whether or not they can stay in the hunt and maybe make the playoffs. Maybe they can. Josh Morrissey, who was injured last night for the Winnipeg Jets, he is not ruled out for Friday's game against the Kings. That is a home game against the Kings, so LA's next game in Winnipeg. The Fires and canceling that game today, they could just jump on a plane early, I guess. I don't know what the status is of flights going in and out of LAX, though, because that smoke is probably going to be causing some headaches, and various other airports in the Los Angeles area, too. But yeah, Morrissey not ruled out. That's good news for Winnipeg fans who had to be concerned when he was out, because the Winnipeg Jets desperately need Morrissey in their lineup. I think we can all agree on that. Buffalo, Kulik, dealing with a lower body injury. He is week to week. So Kozak's been recalled by the team, and we'll see where Kozak slots in. The Buffalo Sabres, of course, really not in the chase for a playoff spot. Would like to be in the chase for a playoff spot. Kulik, I think, has been good for them. So, yeah, we'll see what the future looks like for them. Freddy Andersen, good news for Canes fans. Seen skating around ahead of practice. First time He's been spotted in that environment since his knee surgery on November 22nd. And this was seen as having an 8 to 12, I think it was 8 to 12 weeks was the recovery time. So him being on the ice and getting on skates and starting that process makes total sense to be doing that now. And maybe it'll be more towards the 8 weeks that for him to miss rather than the 12. So crossing fingers that Freddy can come back and stay healthy for the rest of the season. That's a key thing for Freddy Andersen as well. As I mentioned in the goalie video yesterday, his stats have been fantastic when he's played. He just hasn't played that much because of the injury that took him out early in the season. So a Carolina team that's been 4-5-1 in their last 10 could definitely use Andersen in the net. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.